A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On another Sabbath, Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. There was a man whose right hand was withered. The scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he might cure on the Sabbath, so that they might find an accusation against him. Even though he knew what they were thinking, he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Come and stand here." He got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath? To save life or to destroy it?" After looking around at all of them, he said to him, "Stretch out your hand." He did so, and his hand was restored. But they were filled with fury and discussed with one another what they might do to Jesus. The word of the Lord. There are numerous instances of Jesus healing miracles and numerous instances of Jesus working during the Sabbath in a way that transgresses the strict letter of the law, an important law, a sacred law. The Sabbath is one of the most important of the laws of his people, of Jesus's people. And rightly so, because it's about honoring creation. It's about honoring the work that God has done in this world, about resting, being restored, and taking the time to not be so busy with our work that distracts our material earthly minds, our material earthly world, that we don't take one day a week. We should take one day a week where we stop and rest and honor creation and the work that God has done. This is a sacred law. And so when Jesus is transgressing it, it has to be for a good reason. And we see often that what Jesus is doing on these Sabbath days when he works is actually doing the work of honoring creation. On his way into the synagogue or the temple, when he sees somebody who's in need of help, and he works by helping them, Jesus argues that he's actually following the spirit of the Sabbath, the purpose for which it was intended to honor creation. And that stepping over this person and going about my business, worshiping and celebrating while this person is hurting is actually not the deeper work of honoring the Sabbath. Now, what we see happen in chapter 6 of Luke is we see Jesus transgress the Sabbath 2 times in a row, one after another. The first part of Luke chapter 6, the story that comes right before this one, Jesus and his disciples are walking through the fields and they're hungry, and so they pick grain and they're eating it, which is, according to the strict letter of the law, working during the Sabbath and breaking the law. Jesus justifies it, saying basically we have a good reason why we're doing this, and this is actually the work that is honoring what God intends. But then we immediately have this story we just heard, where Jesus is then working on the Sabbath and making a point of looking around at everyone in the room and making sure that they see him doing it and they understand why he's doing it. This is important. This matters because Jesus, I think, in this context, wants them to understand I'm not just doing this in my own way because I don't think you're looking or I don't think you're paying attention. And I don't just think it's important for me to do it for my reasons. I want you to see what I am doing, and I want you to understand why I am doing it. This is noteworthy for me because we so often live in a world today where we are transgressing against each other all the time. It's easy to create slight offenses or transgressions against our sisters and our brothers in this world because they don't know what we're trying to do or what we mean. We don't know what they're trying to do or what we mean. And oftentimes, if we're so busy and internally focused, we don't care what the meaning is. All we know is you got in my way, or I got in your way. You took that thing that I wanted, or I took that thing that you wanted, and we're so quick to immediately go to battle stations without taking the time to make sure we explain what our motivations are. We hear the motivations of each other. We take the time to see and be seen by one another as a human being who's trying to get by in this world. And so at the end of the day, I want to be motivated to go and understand why somebody is doing what they're doing. I want them to understand why what I'm doing is what I'm doing. We may not come to an agreement at the end. I may still think you're wrong. You may still think I'm wrong. We could still end up with animosity toward one another, but it won't be an animosity that comes from not taking the time to understand one another or not taking the time to see one another. What I see Jesus doing in this moment is not just taking the time to do something, breaking the Sabbath, which is hurting the feelings of those people around him, but taking the time to make sure they understand and they see who he is, why he's doing what he's doing, why it matters. And the hope is that we are able to see that, hear that, and understand it, because it matters. So let's go and try to go out into this world and to take the time to make sure we understand and we are clear about our motivations, and we understand and try to understand the motivations of one another. Thanks be to God. Amen.